Hello gamers! How many evade spots do you think are in Deadmines? 5, maybe 10? What if I told you it was upwards of 40? Did you know that you can line of sight, smite, stun? These are a few of the niche tips I'll be teaching in this video. This is the first in a series of videos where I'll be covering survival tips, strategies, and evade spots for hardcore dungeons. I guarantee you'll learn something new to help save your life watching this video. Let's get into it. Starting off, if you want to safely arrive at the dungeon itself, you can log out skip to the dungeon entrance by logging off on this plank of wood. Just make sure you're ever so slightly floating in the air. When you log back in, you will be at the dungeon entrance. There are no dangerous enemies on the way to the first boss, but there are some evade spots should you need them. Any of the minecarts in the dungeon can evade melee mobs, but any ranged mobs will still attack you. Going into the first boss room, these crates on the left act as an evade spot as well, but it's risky as ranged mobs will hit you anyway. The one in the back of the room is much safer. Just hop over the pipe and nothing can attack you. Zor is a very easy boss. However, if your group's under-leveled, you can pull him away from his guards by pulling him at the peak of his patrol to make it a bit easier. A fun note about this boss is that his weapon changes depending on what weapon he's going to drop. As far as I can tell, he's the only mob in the game that does this. However, I suspect Mr. Smite may do something similar. I just never got him to do it in my testing. This tip only really matters for speedrunners. However, you can open the door by interacting with the lever through the door, even before the boss dies. This is true for every locked door in the dungeon except for the one leading to the boat. After every boss in the dungeon, a patrol pack will spawn behind you and slowly make its way towards you. I'd recommend backtracking and killing this patrol after each boss just to be safe. It's not worth trying to outrun it. Heading to Sneed's room, once again, the minecarts here are evade spots. This is the last time I'll mention them, but every minecart in this dungeon is an evade spot. The goblins in Mr. Sneed's room are the first truly dangerous mobs. They do a cleave and can chain stun you if you pull too many. Be very careful to not pull more than 2 or 3 at a time. There are multiple evade spots in this room, however only a couple are worth using. This log is an evade spot from any melee mobs if you run up it. And lastly, if you head up the ramp and jump onto the log hanging over the room, this ledge at the very end is an evade spot from everything. The ledge towards the front of the log is also an evade spot, however, casters can sometimes hit you from there. Sneed's Shredder is treated as a humanoid, not a mechanical. Since you are technically fighting Sneed himself, this means he is fearable, unlike most other mechanical mobs. If your group's having trouble, just spam fear him. Leaving Sneed's room, there are 2 more evade spots. The first is melee only, the second one will evade any mob. For the second one, be very careful to not move too far forward, or you'll give enemies a way to path to you. You must be in the corner. Entering the foundry, there are 2 big chains, one on each side of the room. Each of these chains are an evade spot as well, just don't miss the jump. The Goblin Craftsman cast a spell called Melt Ore, which applies a slow and damage over time effect on nearby enemies, keyword being nearby. If you simply walk away from the spell, it will not hit you. However, if it does affect a player, since it has a slow component, it can actually be removed by spells such as Blessing of Freedom or Escape Artist, if you want to mitigate some damage. The Goblin Engineers have a spell to summon a robot pet. This pet is elite and is essentially an extra mob. While it's not kickable, you can use stuns and gouges to stop the cast. Prioritize doing this whenever possible. Gilned has a spell called Molten Metal. Similar to the Melt Ore spell, it is melee range only, and you can back away from it to avoid being hit by it. The path leading towards the boat has 1 evade spot, and it's melee only. When you loot the gunpowder keg, an elite will spawn and run towards you. Using the gunpowder on the cannon to blow down the door will make mobs run towards you. If you have a rogue with lockpicking, the mobs will not run towards you. These Squall Shapers on these docks are the last remaining dangerous mob. They cast Frost Nova and Fire Blast. Frost Nova can isolate your group members, which may cause mobs to hit your DPS or healer, depending on where your tank got frozen. The Fire Blast is just a large amount of burst damage that you need to be aware of. Always have your finger over the potion key if you're low health versus a Squall Shaper. The pirates have pet parrots that have very low health but still do decent damage. Kill the parrots first for an easy way to reduce the damage your group takes. Any of the planks with torches on them are evade spots. There's also a fence kite near the entrance to the area where you can kite mobs back and forth to whittle them down safely. This part of the dock is also a fence kite and causes mobs to run back to you in the water. This one's a bit trickier to do consistently, but it's great for making space when you pull it off. These pillars next to Mr. Smite are evade spots. You can also stun Mr. Smite to make him skip a stun. He does his stuns at 66% and 33% HP, so stun him around 70% or 35% and then push him over the breakpoint during the stun. As I mentioned at the start of this video, you can also line of sight the stun behind the pillar. Just cancel your auto attacks by pressing escape or it won't work for some reason. Every side of the boat is an evade spot. The wheel is an evade spot you can hop up if needed. This cannon by Mr. Greenskin works as a pseudo fence kite and evade spot. Fair warning, it's very hard to pull off. If you stun Van Cleef before 50% HP, he won't spawn ads, similar to skipping Mr. Smite's stun. The ring around the upper deck is a fence kite as well. While it's not a very practical evade spot, if you ever wanted to take a on Van Cleef's house, you can. This pillar down here is an evade spot, and lastly, this nook beside the outhouse is an evade spot as well. Okay, that about sums up everything. I didn't cover every evade spot as lots are useless or too hard to execute when under pressure. For example, this one beside the instance portal is super useless. Why not just run out? I hope this video taught you something. As I mentioned earlier, I will have my Deadmines weak auras in the description down below. They tell you when to line of sight or stun Smite and Van Cleef. These weak auras were made by Peter, my Hardcore All-Stars partner. Huge thanks to him for the help. As always, if you liked this video, please click the like button, as it helps me know what kind of content you guys want to see more of. And before we go, a quick shout out to my Ko-fi supporters. Ko-fi is like Patreon, but with less fees. Thank you guys so much for your support. I cannot make these videos without you. Until next time, gamers, toodles!